Yes. Okay. So what we're going to do here is we're now for our next subject, we're going to be now talking and just running through some of the things from the Game Informer podcast. It's kind of, I think it was like the final bit of the sort of Game Informer exclusive information.
I got like 4 pages of notes, so let's do this.
Yeah, I'm just going to bring up the page which had it on. If you go over to Diz Kingdom, you will find the link there as well. For this interview, a great interview with John Vanarchi. He kind of answered some people's questions and really just kind of. So let's quickly just run through some of these things. So it was talking about the launch and the announcement of. Oh yeah, he said Rise of the Empire will come in the fall. Marvel come later, but legally couldn't discuss it. So that's been something that's been brought up quite a few times. Is I think the Marvel. And I think this was the thing with 2.0 is Marvel have to sign off on a lot, or maybe a little bit more, hold things a bit more closer to their chest. So things need to be sort of signed off a bit better.
Yeah, and it makes sense because for a lot of people who aren't aware, the Marvel Cinematic Universe is now the highest grossing franchise of all time. Because all these movies are in the same universe, they are considered part of the same franchise. So they recently... I think it was with Guardians or Avengers? I don't. Anyways, they wow, I can't talk. They passed Harry Potter. Harry Potter was the one that was the highest. So that's great, and I'm glad that they're not saying anything. It just gives us more information to look forward to.
I mean,
another thing.
They did say Hulkbuster and Ultron are in the game as characters.
Yes,
that was confirmed.
And another thing that they mentioned there too was that the new developer for them obviously is working on it. It's United Front Games, and these are the people that were responsible for like the Tomb Raider collection, Little Big Planet, and like you said, he couldn't legally say anything. So
no, again, it looks that thing of they've kind of, I think Studio Gobo and Avalanche have already had a go at Marvel playsets, so they've given it to a brand new team to do with, and I'm guessing they're going to be allowed a little bit of freedom. Because they want it to feel different than the previous ones. But I'm a big Marvel fan. I am a huge Marvel fan. So as much as all the Star Wars stuff is cool, the Marvel thing to me is still just as important. And that's what like, Marvel was like. So, well, I'm sat there last night reading some Star Wars, some Marvel comics. This is, to me, and I was watching Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., this is still just as big for me to have more Marvel content. So I'm still pretty excited about all of that coming into it.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. It's very crucial and important, especially since you launched 2.0 with Marvel. It has to stay strong.
Yeah.
So.
JV explained the space flight gameplay in 3.0 includes flying from planet to planet, and on the way you can stop off at moons and do little challenges and stuff. So this kind of feels more Pirates of the Caribbean sort of style, which I think is great. That's good.
He also mentioned that there's 2 different types of flight, which is, like you said, open world, and then what he called spline, which I guess coincides with the new Logic toy. But the spline one is kind of like where you have a set path, like the trench run and the Death Star, all that stuff. So yeah, that's cool. I'm excited for that as well.
Yeah, no, we've also he talked about there's a lot there was a kind of a bit of discussion about the variety of enemies. I think with 2.0, there was a kind of, unless you wanted Venom symbionts and a couple of, there wasn't really a lot of choice of enemies. So this year they've added a lot more enemies of different kinds. I mean, even with the Star Wars stuff, we're really seeing lots of different droids, lots of different things. So that's something that they're much more aware of.
Yeah, and to add to that, he also mentioned something that I thought was really cool, is that not only do you have a variety of new enemies, but there's also a different type of difficulty between all of them. Like he said something about some of them will be kind of like a puzzle, sort of. Like you have to figure them out before you can defeat them. And then he also did mention, which I guess it's the next thing that you were going to bring up there, is that if you're an adult, change the difficulty to hard. I mean, you get more sparks from it, and obviously this game is for family. So if you're a hardcore gamer, just switch the difficulty to hard for all the playsets, and you'll be rewarded.
I think that was maybe one of those sort of things of maybe came out of 2.0, maybe sort of older gamers picking up the Marvel side of it and being very sort of, like, well, this is a bit easy. Well, it's set that much lower for its general target audience.
Yeah,
hard enough for me. um, so they've also said the skill tree cap is still 20. So there's going to be less upgrades to 1.0 and 2 characters, though they are thinking of upgrading the 1.0 characters with the help of the community. Well, upgrade patches. This is kind of an interesting thing. I'm wondering if they caught wind of the fact that people weren't so happy with the 1.0 characters.
Yeah, and I like what they're doing here, because even though there's not like like basically a skill tree upgrade for the for the old figures, they did mention that they're going to be playing differently. Like, for example, he did bring up the fact that Jack will hold his cutlass kind of like Anakin holds his lightsaber. So there's like improved melee action between them, or like Rapunzel will hold her frying pan a little bit differently. But as far as what you're talking about, he did reply that they're going to be sending out like this poll type of questionnaire to the community, where they will actually ask people to vote. What do you want? Do you want Syndrome to fly? Do you want Buzz to have like karate chop or a laser? And the community is going to be it's up to them to vote, and then they're going to release it via patch. That's awesome. I'm happy for that.
Yeah, and also I'm wondering if this is one of those things of they know that there's an issue with this, but they didn't allow any development time for it. While because this game was, I think, was all in process while 2.0 was on. I think it's just one of those situations. I still think with the 1.0 characters that they're still on the shelf, and that's not they are just going to get eaten alive if they don't do something with them, especially like special moves and just more attack. Buzz Lightyear with his little Pixar ball is just not going to withstand much of a fight against Anakin Skywalker.
Yeah, that's true.
No, that's good that they're kind of going to go back and have a look at that. They also talked about the new Speedway and Takeover expansions, which are open for characters for more structured gameplay, and they are sort of, I would say, they're almost torn between play sets, toy box, and these game discs, because I think they're really hoping that these new expansion packs will be a big success, because I think there's a real torn between people that want the play sets and people want the toy box and they want that structured play, and I think they missed that boat with 2.0, and this is kind of a way of getting at it.
Yeah, no, something that JV did bring up that and actually kind of like perked my ears up, because it makes a lot of sense, is you're right. He did say that there is this big 50-50 between the community, whether they want play sets for people or do they want like complete crossover gameplay. And JV did say that at this point they are going to stick to focusing on the characters sticking to their properties in play sets. However, that's why they're introducing these new expansion discs. But this is the thing that he brought up that kind of made my ears perk up. He did say that if they were to go ahead and do it separately, like have the game separate to where everybody can play together, it's almost like you're taking the amiibo route, where you're kind of limited to which characters you can bring in, as opposed to basically all the characters. So,
but there was something that kind of was piggybacking off that, was he mentioned the idea of that, like this Speedway game, was there even was discussions of whether or not they should release it as a separate game,
right?
Completely separate. You can use your Infinity characters on it. It's basically Disney Infinity Speedway. It's a separate game entirely, a bit like the kart racing game for Little Big Planet. But they decided that it was launching it within it would be less complicated, easier. The cost of price of it would be less, because they wouldn't have to do it as its own separate game. It would be easier to update, and you'd have. And I was just sitting there going, "Wow, they are really looking at sort of Infinity, going, well, how." They're now looking at. I think they're almost looking at it now that Infinity is no longer just about one video game. This is a combination of video games. They're trying to sell it as lots of separate video games. All these different play sets are being viewed slightly differently. The idea of them talking about releasing the kart game as a standalone video game, that was really interesting to me. That was something I wasn't expecting to hear them say.
Yeah, it almost makes you feel like, look at Amiibo, how you can only have one save file for each figure on each game you play. But if you want to play a different game with it, you have to delete that save file on the figure itself. So it's great that they keep it all together. And like you said, price point was a big thing for them as well. And it just makes it friendlier for everybody, makes it easier for everybody. That's cool. And no, I'm excited for that.
Yeah. was just going to say, on a quick subject of those two toy box ones, I saw a image. I haven't been able to find any more information on it. Target might be offering one of these up as a pre-order bonus.
Oh, that's cool.
I'm still trying to find a little bit more information on it, but I saw a picture of a Target image. So this might be where they're going down the route for, rather than maybe giving away a figure.
Oh, that's interesting.
So I'm still waiting to find out a bit more on that. Anyway,
hey, let's move on to another one that I heard. Was, and again, I'm not going to bring up what we talked about last time on how they're going to stack them onto this hex space. But he did say that the 1.0 power disc vehicles, 2.0 power disc vehicles, the new 3.0 power disc vehicles, they're all going to actually get to enjoy the new upgrades by Sumo in this new Speedway and in the toy box. So all your cars, your vehicles, everything that you used before, they're going to drive differently and better and tighter all throughout the game, which is awesome. So I thought that was cool because, I can't wait to actually enjoy having equal racing ability as opposed to, remember us having the motorcycle take off and me and the land speeder just chilling. What's going on?
that was such a weird figure. Like the first time we'd done a race, you, me, and Travis in a race thing, we all sit down a race. I grabbed the motorcycle and I'm off and I'm lapping them and going, what are you guys doing? It's just like, it's like you're in Tony Stark's sort of Lamborghini that to me is the slowest vehicle on the planet. You might as well be on Gus trying to do a chase in that thing. But yeah,
Gus would be awesome.
Okay, so let's have a look here. So we've got other options being brought up, include JV sort of touched on the Hall of Heroes and that they've given that an upgrade.
He didn't get into what the new Hall of Heroes would be called.
No.
But oh well. No. we'll find out later.
No. He talks about how the female characters in 3.0s, and they really want to get female players into Disney Infinity. And there's a lot, and they want to have as many female characters as possible to kind of encourage that. And I think, this is the one side of things, because I think Marvel, they really did go a little bit too heavy down on one side. I think Star Wars could easily push that same thing. So Inside Out is being sort of almost pushed as the alternative to that, and it's a more family and sort of a different audience. Yeah,
and I mean, picking back off of that, as far as like female characters go, I mean, it did seem like it lacked a bit last time, but you do have to include the Disney side. But on this one, I mean, so far we have Leia, Ahsoka, Mulan, Sadness, Joy, Disgust, Minnie, and Korra. And if we are thinking about rumors for Force Awakens, you're going to have Rey. She's a main character. Phasma is possible. I don't know if they'll make her into a character. And then on the Marvel side, if we don't get a Scarlet Witch, I'm going to protest. But come on, I mean, that's a lot of female. So that's great. That's very great. I'm so happy we're getting a lot more female characters.
He did say stay tuned for more Disney characters, which I thought was interesting. It's like, are we going to get a second wave of Disney characters that we haven't had announced?
And that's another thing, pigging back off of that, too. Somebody asked a question about, it's on this page. Why is it that they prefer Pixar over Disney Animation? And JV said, totally not true, stay tuned. Which leads us back to our theory about 4.0 being heavy on animation, which is going to be awesome. But like you said, maybe we might have more Disney stuff this time around, but for sure 4.0 definitely might be heavier.
I think as we get into the later games, it'll be easier for them to. They've got the initial Marvel, as I said, they got that initial Star Wars and Marvel out now. They can spread things out a bit more evenly. Okay, so we've got here. JV talks about how Amiibo works differently to Infinity with regards to making sure characters are available to everyone. They don't want people to have a hunt. They don't want to become frustrated. And one of the key things he said is he doesn't want them to become frustrated and move to another Toys to Game Life game.
Yeah,
that was a real kind of shot there, I thought, of going, there's problems with Amiibo and there's too much competition to be pissing people off.
Well, I mean, obviously we all know he's talking about Amiibo when he says these things, but there were some strong words he threw in there. Like, for example, he says, we don't want to take the wrong direction, which obviously he's insinuating that Amiibo is definitely taking the wrong direction, which I agree. And then he also said that we don't want to create artificial demand for our figures. Like, and he said, let me see if I remember the quote here. he said instead of having people being upset trying to find a figure, or I'm not quoting him because I don't remember. Instead of finding a figure that they can't find and going off to another Toys of Life game, he rather it be available and people to enjoy the game as opposed to they didn't want to demand, they didn't want to hunt. They want it to be readily available, not only for all the kids to be happy, but to make the parents happy by finding it easily. Yeah. So that's awesome. I mean, and it shows by them removing the blind bags. It just shows we got to make this easier for everybody. Yeah. So
no, that's cool. He talked a little bit about possibility characters. To be honest, it was more of they're all possible. Every character is possible at some point. So there was not really Kingdom Hearts and Goofy was brought up,
and Boba as well.
Yes, but Bob is a slightly different issue at the minute. He did say they're only going to focus on the Star Wars canon characters. And finally, he said that there's a lot more things to be shown at E3, including playsets that have been announced. There's going to be some surprises, and there will be lots of things to be excited about.
Yeah, let me see if there was anything else. Picking back off what you just said, that's the first thing I'm going to do when I get to that booth. He said to look at that wall of display because there's some surprises in there, which I'm maybe thinking they might be revealing new figures by you finding them. So that would be cool if that's true. Anyways, no, I'm excited for that. Let's see. Sorry, I just want to run through this. Oh yeah. This is a cool thing. He said that the Inside Out characters, because the playset is not combat focused, they were throwing around the idea of whether they should make them have combos outside of it in the toy box, and of course they did, because you want to be able to actually have a different play style in the toy box. I mean, it goes back to the 1.0 characters not being fair with the new ones. You want to make sure that they're fair with everybody else out there. So that's cool. They have different combat combos outside of the playset. And then one last thing that I did notice that he said when he was talking about what the characters do as far as the mechanics go, he said grow big, grow small. And it kind of made me think, wait a second, are we getting the shrink or the goo toy back in 3.0? I see. I don't know if we are gonna get it back, but he did say grow big, grow small, which makes me think that we might have something similar to it.
I think the 6,000 toys we've got now, that's going to become increasingly less likely.
I don't know. I mean, he said it, so I'm just quoting. But anyways, that's all I got myself.
I think just in general, it's a really, really great podcast to listen to over at Gameinformer for that. Really informative. Again, which has been the whole thing of 3.0's launch has been very informative. We're knowing a lot more about it.
Absolutely. Yeah. So much info. I can't even retain it all. I had to take.
Yeah, I think we're pretty much at a point now where we're going to roll over